Hi guys, Ellen Mary meets everybody. It's MicheleMarieDalene. This morning I mentioned something that I wanted to try to touch on base about surround sound. Um, this is one of those technical videos, but we're going to keep it simple for the average person to understand the general gist of what we're talking about. Surround sound is actually very interesting. In fact, it's so interesting that I'm sure a lot of people probably don't know much about the backstory of it. So, let me explain it with a simple diagram. I drew this up here. And it is simple. And it is very, very simple. I don't know if you can see my pointer or my pointing at different objects here. But I think you can. Because I know I do have that set on. So let's get started with this demo. This here is a simple example of quadraphonic surround sound. This is the most commonly used in the 1970s. And that is probably the one I would probably end up doing, which is you have your mic, which is in your front left, the mic, which is in your front right. You have the subject or listener. I'm going to explain that in a second. The mic rear or left rear, and the mic left right. Okay, rear right. And this is the rear mix channel, and these are the front mix. I mentioned two mixers because most mixers you buy in the store are stereo. They don't make quadraphonic mixers as much anymore. Maybe they did it one time, and then they used to make quadraphonic stereos back in the 70s. This is a very simple form of what they call discrete surround sound. That is, every one of these would have a track. So, microphone 1, front left, would have a track. Microphone front right would have a track. Microphone rear left would have a track. And microphone rear right would have a track. And then you would import them. Now, OBS supports version or 4-channel sound. Now, in a perfectly used application, for example, like an orchestra or concert, you're recording these guys in the center. That is where it says the listener or the subject. So if you're, for example, recording a bassist or a piano player, in the center is where he is among all the microphones. They're all pointed at him. Probably using cardioid microphones or hypercardioid microphones. So you want to get more of what's in front of you. Okay? Then the 4 tracks and the 4 microphones would be imported to 2 mixers, and then those 2 mixers, I didn't show it here, but obviously this would go to the recording apparatus, which would be OBS, and then OBS would record the sound of 4 tracks of sound. The problem that comes up is when you're dealing with things like YouTube is how are the 4 tracks going to be encoded? Now, YouTube does stereo, and YouTube can do 4-track, to my knowledge, but the problem is that they gets a little more complicated because what's the order of the tracks? After the stereo, there's only 1 and 2, right? Right and left, or left and right. Now you gotta deal with front left, front right, rear right, and then you have to figure out which way you're gonna put them in sequence. Now, that means there's up to 16 possible combinations of how you can do it. Okay? Front left, rear left, front left, rear right. Front left, rear left, front right, rear right, front right, left, front right, or front left, front. Ugh, you're just getting me confused just thinking about it. Okay? The point is, then you'd have rear left, rear right, or it could even then be something like front right, left or back, rear left, or rear right. There's several combinations. So how would you make sure that there's no complication? Clearly, you can see why. If you got the microphone saying this is left and this is right and this is the way you want the sound to record, well, what happens if YouTube says, oh, this is left in the front and this is left in the back, and then this is the right in the back, and now this is front right is, well, where it would be? That the total thing would be a mess. So how do you map it? That's the question. Mapping the sound to the right devices is going to be the main issue that a recording engineer, you got to figure that out. Okay? Because if you don't get this right, then you're now what was originally your subject. When he places the speakers in front of him in the same different position where the microphones are, well, guess what? He's going to have a problem. Not only is he not going to be able to be sure what the heck he's listening to, because now everything is totally all pear-shaped and sounds at all kinds of crazy angles, and nobody's happy, and you're not happy, your audience is not happy, everybody's just having a bad day of sound. So, never mind the engineering point of it, which is now you would have to figure out how are you going to encode it. As I mentioned, that's not just a matter of right and left and stuff, because that's certainly a major part of the problem. But what happens if a person's listening to it on a device that's only stereo? Then you have to down mix it. And depending on the level of down mixing involved and what you're recording, it's like we have an expression, crap to crap. You can actually take, say, Dolby Digital Surround Sound 5.1, you can down mix it, which it would just sound like crap. But what would it look if it was Dolby Digital 5.1 surround sound? Or let me make it easy, 5.0 surround sound. Well, you're going to have an additional object right up here, if I may show you, which is this main speaker here. I'm going to copy this. I know it's a lousy example, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm going to hit paste. And I'm going to take the speaker. I just copied it. And now it is in the center. I'll set it just a little bit so you can see it here. So now here's your center channel. Okay? So this is actually more likely the three speakers that your audience is using. So we will label this one here to center, as in center channel. Okay? So we're going to label this one center. Okay? So CENTER, center. Okay? There's your center channel. This is going to be the thing that is going to be used for your audience. So now you got to figure out for surround sound is you have the center channel. This is where your dialogue is, and you have your left and your right, and your left and your right and the rear. Again, you got to know how to mix it together. How are we going to master this? Well, in motion pictures, from when I've seen with discrete surround sound, I had my old CD player. Rest in peace, Kobe. You were a mace machine in surround sound. You were a killer. It has discrete surround sound, which means that each output of the DVD had its own audio analog RCA jack. Okay, so you had your front left, your front right, rear left, you had your front right, your rear left, you had your center, and it even had a connection for the woofer or subwoofer, which would need to be the 0.1. Now, this situation here would result in basically downloading an amplifier with 5 channels, one for this, 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 which means this mixer here now would have 3 channel mixer. Or more realistically, might be a second mixer just into the center channel. Need I say, it gets ugly. Now, the recording engineer, as beautiful you are, Mr. Engineer, you got to deal with 2 mixers, 4 microphones, and the standard quadraphonic sound. For surround sound 5.0, you got to deal with 3 mixers, 5 microphones and trying to keep them all organized in the right way so that everybody can rightfully hear the same effect as you intended. It's not surprising. So you can have all these channels and they're all mixed in a beautiful way and everybody's, enjoying the show. But you, of course, are not, because your whole life doesn't end there. Because now you have to remember that if a person on YouTube is listening on, say, a two-channel device, such as a stereo, or their cell phone or tablet, or even their computer, only 2 speakers, now, every time you have to down mix everything, it's just like the old expression, crop to crap. That is, now, what are you going to do with the rear channels? Are you going to mix them together as a single channel? Or are you going to just totally throw them out? For example, what do you really need for the sound? Do you need the lefts and the rights? Yes. Do you need the rights and the rights? Yes. Where is the channel going to fall? Well, if you're converting, even if, let's just say, forget the rear channels, just the front, 3.1 or 3.0 sounds. Now, you have to figure out what to do with the center channel, with stereo. Do you take 50% center channel and put it to each speaker? Or do you figure out another ratio? In short, it's a lot of work just to figure out how to do something like that. Never mind, the fact that 3-channel sound is a little strange. It's not something you're going to see on a regular basis. And, yeah, it's weird. It's strange. It's such an odd number of microphones. It's not funny, but it's a perfect example. So now the point is you got your center channel, how much goes to each speaker. Now, that still doesn't solve the crop to crap problem, because what if you, at the same time, want to add in a subwoofer? 3.1, anybody? 3.1 sound. Well, now you're going to have to deal with a subwoofer. Good luck, sweetie. Where are you going to mix the woofer to? Well, first of all, bass is more directional or omnidirectional than a high frequency like a treble is. Take a whistle, for example. A whistle. Even a standard little hand whistle. Very strident whistle sound, right? It is more directive to where it's blown at than versus, say, the bass drum. Let's say when you go to a parade, it's the same thing, right? The fifes are playing, right? And the guys walking up front with the big drums. Boom, 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 boom. But listen to the fifes. They are presented to you. And as you're listening to the fifes, I'm going to temporarily dismiss Toppler Chef for a minute, just because it makes it easy, okay? Because as they move out of your range, the fifes get softer and harder to hear, but you can still hear the thump, bump, 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 bump. So the drums, right? That's because bass is more directional. It's more omnidirectional. It goes further. So that's why we say 5.1. The 0.1 is the woofer, which is usually the thing that gives the most dynamic nature to the sound. Makes it bounce. Boom, 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 boom. That's my hand up in the desk here. Boom, 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 boom. But the high frequency fifes just don't have the same kind of effect. So yeah, you get this kind of thing. So now when you're doing this, okay, just keep it simple. We're going to keep a 4-channel quad. First question. what happens now with the engineer trying to make sure all the microphones are equalized? Well, he's going to have a problem. Because his microphones have to be equalized, he can't just go, "It's okay, I will figure it out, it's just sound." But he's still going to have to check the rear mixer, the front mixer, and make sure everything is in the right phase. In addition to that, we're talking about digital inputs, such as, say, two Behringer Q1202s, which means they're connected by USB. What about in the right time? So, if you, say, for example, clap your hands like that, and let's say you're in the center row, and you're listening to the hand clap, and you go back to the rear channels, and the sound's too soft, assuming that everything is equally proportioned, equal distance, equal microphone designs, same amount of microphones, hopefully even from the same batch, all of a sudden, you go back, you're listening to your monitoring your sources, and you hear that the rear microphones don't sound like they're even the same level, or the timing is off by maybe a microsecond or whatever like that. You're going to notice it. After all, if everything is equal distance from the subject, and all our microphones were the same type, and everything was perfectly aligned, but audio levels in the rear are off by a tiny bit, it's going to ruin the image. What they call the imagery. Okay, the soundstage is going to be corrupted because of that reason. Back in the 1970s, when quadraphonic was a thing and it was common, one of the things is the idea was that you can get the surround sound of your favorite band, and the recording engineers meant that they had to figure out where to put the microphones. After all, it's not the same thing as when you just got a front, right, and left pointed at the band. Because in that case, yeah, you're going to get the sound, and it goes into your standard 2-track recording apparatus, mixer board, everything. But when you add in the other rear channels, the first question is, rear what? What I mean by that? Are you trying to say put these things in the rear of the auditorium? Are you saying you want to put this on the rear of the performers? Where do you want the person to feel they're in the center? If you want them to feel like they're in the center of the auditorium, listening to their favorite album, like the Grateful Dead or the Guess Who or whatever, then you're probably going to put these rear microphones in the back of the auditorium. Right? But what do you want to have them sound like they're in the orchestra? Like a big, orchestra. Then you're going to put these in the back of the orchestra, because the rear channel ones, because that's going to be where the other, usually like the string instruments are usually in the back. Well, actually in the front. I think it's usually the tubas and the trombones and the trumpets are in the back. The point is you're going to get the rear channel there. That means that you're going to look like you're sitting in the center of the orchestra. Someone pointed out a valid question. You only got 2 ears. How can you sense direction with 2 ears? Well, that gets a little challenging, putting it bluntly. Here's why. First of all, has to do with the room treatment that you're listening to it in. If you happen to be listening to an album in a room that has, if you want to listen to an album in a room that is all cinder block or hard walls, no kind of thermal absorption at all, the stereo sound alone is going to bounce off your walls. Just stereo. No, I'm not even talking about quad. All of a sudden, the whole effect is like spoiled by the ricocheting of sound back and forth. On the other hand, though, you got in the quad. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to come from the rear driver speakers, bounce off the front of the wall, front of the room, straight ahead of it. Likewise, for the rear or for the front speakers, are going to come back to the back of walls and come to the back of your head. How do you still recognize three-dimensional sound? You don't, honestly. You do it by turning the head around, cocking the ears. At least I do. But then I'm partially deaf, so what would I know? So, surround sound pretty much is doable. Is it feasible? No, not for me. And that's one reason is for most of my content couldn't even be done with a monaural microphone. And that's all you really need for my show. You don't need stereo. In fact, my microphone is sent out to both the right and left channel as a monaural audio source. Okay? It's the same sound from my microphone going out to both the right and the left. So therefore, it's no different between stereo and monaural. It is still stereo. Well, no, it's actually joint mono. Actually, it's monaural. It's just the same sound going out to two tracks. But does that mean could that be useful? Of course it can. If you were going to do a band, an orchestra, or whatever, and you want to do a special effect, take, for example, the album by Tifton Sound called Life at the Italian Party. There was an example where this quadraphonic sound could make sense. Why? The idea was to record the party and the atmosphere of the party. So you would have microphones aiming to the orchestra for the front, and you also have the microphones in the rear of the auditorium recovering the general hustle and bustle of the Italian party and the applause. And that was what had been done. Of course, when Tifton Sound did Live at the Italian Party, they didn't have quadraphonic sound. But if they had, the result would have been very, very different. And probably very distracting in mono, or even stereo, because remember, crop to crap? You actually wouldn't then realize this, as I said before. Am I going to focus and now mix only the sound from the front, or the sound from the back? Am I going to mix the two together in equal proportions? Am I going to basically just say the rear channel, all the clinking glasses and all this? I don't need that, so we're going to throw that away. Is that going to ruin the effect? Maybe. I think Tifton Sound did a fantastic job with Live at the Italian Party, and I do think if quadraphonic sound was a thing back then in the 60s when that album came out, I think it would have been maybe a major calamity. However, don't forget there was another thing too, if I may. The way records were encoded for quadraphonic sound, there were so many different formats of this in matrixing, it was enough to basically make your head hurt. Just to look at the different matrix methods alone was astronomically complicated. So, am I likely to use this in the future? No. Would I want to try it for a lark? Maybe. And what would I need? Well, to make things easy, you need two mixers that are the same model. Okay, that's the most important thing. You also need 4 microphones, ideally of the same model. Ideally an equal length of XLR cable, because you don't want the sound to be slightly out of phase. Everything has to be equal, remember? Because now things become more complicated than even stereo. Okay? So let's say, for example, I want the videography. So let's say I have 4 PG-38 microphones or 2 or 4 PG-48 microphones. Okay? And then you have 4 12-foot long audio grade XLR cables plug into 2 Behringer Q1202 USB mixers connected to OBS on the Mac, which is act as our recording device, and then in that Mac we have to assign, i.e. track assign, which channels are fronts, which ones are the rears, and hope to God that when you will play it back on the appropriate software that the mapping is going to match, or at least allow you to remap as needed to properly match front and rears. How much would it cost? Well, cost financially, probably not much more than one stereo outfit, except of course you're gonna need 2 more microphones, 2 more cables, 1 more mixer, and of course setting your OBS to do stereo or to do quad sound. What is it gonna cost emotionally? Well, the fact is now you gotta balance EQ not 1 stereo source, but effectively 2 stereo sources, and hope that everything is properly in phase. It's going to cost you a lot of Excedrin. Trust me, you're going to get a migraine by the time you're done. And that's assuming that nobody, such as a YouTube encoder, decides to totally throw your mix up like a tossed salad and get them all in the wrong places. Now, I found that OBS can do up to 7.1. Am I ready to do that? No. Would I want to? No. Because it's asking for too much. But if you really want to try, I would rather just try quad or 4.0 first before you try doing anything higher than 4.0. If you can get 4.0 mastered and it works for you, fantastic. If you want to try 5.0, that means having a center channel, go for it. But no matter what, that's a lot of work just to encode music. So, keep this drawing in mind because you're going to need to know about it. As crappy as it is, there is what a 5.0 surround sound map would look like. 4.0 is the same thing, but you don't have the center channel. And what's important to remember is this is going to be a real doozy. So for anybody who wants to play with this technology, who wants to prove that they got the guts and the chutzpah and the nerves and the patience, wants to do it, good luck. I say to you, good luck. I would love to see the results, so don't be afraid to give it a try and let me know how it comes out. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.